Hello and welcome everyone to The Last Hit. We have another wonderful episode lined up for you today, and we have a new guest, a new champion, if you will, for The Last Hit. I'm Mazel. I'm joined by the lovely Dagda again, and for the first time of the year, we've got Ox, and I am so excited to get into the thick of things here with you. Got a lot of conversations we definitely want to have, but the first thing is, we found out that gods can bleed, guys, as EDG lost one game. Just one game. That's it.
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of that draft, I'm gonna say, like when it was coming through.
Can you specifically pinpoint, is there like a certain thing in that draft? Maybe an individual
Let's hear. I want to get into this.
One last pick of the Shogat, I will say, may not have been the optimal strategy, because I was looking and I was like, you know what? There's this super long range. You probably want to go for some sort of engage here. EDG Ultra Prime will be able to like play out, and then it was just like, yeah, Shogat does well into that. You're like, no, he doesn't. It was just a disaster.
Yeah, I think Flandre bought a lot of like sort of trust from the team when he brought out the Annie and the Vladimir, and they were like, oh dude, yeah, I'm sure Cho'Gath is definitely a valid pick here. We'll trust Flandre. And then now he's like back in the dumps. Game 3, put him on Gragas. It's like, nah man, you're playing meta stuff now.
Yeah.
You're never getting another chance.
Flandre's picks are the cryptocurrency of the LPL. You know, it's like sometimes they go to the moon. Sometimes you get the Annie and it looks great. You're able to play off it. Sometimes you get Shogun into long range. It just tanks. You know, there's no real rhyme nor reason to Well, a lot of the picks that have actually come out for him have actually looked reasonably okay. But when I saw that composition, it was like Jinx, Syndra. You've got Gragas who's going to be able to like bop you all the way. You've got Jarvan who can try and lock you up. Like there was just little that he was going to be able to do.
How is Cho'Gath ever going to be able to walk, man? I think this is the thing with Cho'Gath. Like, you're the size of a lane eventually, and it's like you just get hit by one skill shot, and I'm like, right, I am never reaching the enemy AD carry. So, I mean, yeah.
You'll never be able to get there. I'm just waiting for the day that we get enough scaling in the game where Cho'Gath just takes over like the entire half of the map, and we'll just see what happens with that. But something else that happened this week was we had the longest game of the split so far, and it was a doozy. And it was also our match of the week, guys, as V5 versus Top Esports. It was a very interesting series, to say the least.
I was genuinely impressed that Top Esports managed to get the Chemtech Soul and like pick up Elder and still were like struggling to finish the game. Like,
it was such a banger, though.
It was good. It was good.
I was on the edge of my seat. I was sitting here at like 4 o'clock in the morning, yelling my face off at the screen. Like that's how you know it's good. But not from an analytical.
This might be one of my favorite series I've ever watched in the LPL. Like it was so much fun. Like not only did you have that hype moment of literally the 1 HP Nexus, but also just the skill that was on show, right? We got the mechanical prowess. You get to see everyone going against each other. We got Rookie feels like he's back on form. He looks absolutely insane. But even then, the decision making that was going on within the game, right? It kind of felt like you hit this like lovely spread of everyone was happy who watched this game. If you wanted just to go like, oh my god, lose my mind, monkey brain, let's go, it was great. Then you got to see the whole like, hey, you know, Rookie's going to give up a wave bot, so then he can make a pick here. They burn the flash, but now means that flash isn't up for the dragon fight that's ensuing in 2.5 minutes. Like there was so much that was there that you could like start to piece together and work. It was honestly amazing. This was like everything you could have hoped for from that series, and especially with the hype that was going into it, especially with the names that were on it. There was so much hype that game needed to deliver, and it went far beyond it.
100%, man. I got the honor of being able to cast it, and it was so good.
I was so jealous.
I feel like it was kind of like V5 for me in this series. Seemed like they had a better understanding of how to play things out. Like whenever they got a lead, when they got Barons, they just capitalized. But like Top Esports, as much as like I think the decision making had times where it elapsed, there's so much individual talent on that lineup. But I think the Knight Rookie matchup was a really interesting one. I think it was just crazy the fact that like we came in super hyped and Rookie just like made it clear he was a step above.
Yeah,
the Azir, we got the Azir. Like, come on, man.
Dude, I don't know about that Azir, man. It's not as bad as the Cho'Gath,
it's for the looks, all right? It's for the looks. Dude, we're just gonna go with that.
Ricky thought he was trapped in the meta a couple of years ago. It's like, oh, they're picking Corky? Do I go Azir here? It's like, no, dude.
He's getting a little PTSD
I will say though, like
from last year.
I loved watching Rookie in that like game too, because we've seen kind of like Victor has been able to get control over Corkis in matchups, right? But like this was on a different level. And it really does feel like, especially after we had a disappointing year for Rookie in 2021, where he just looked done. He didn't look like he was interested in the game. Yeah. Coming back, especially in this series, right? Like, roaming all over the place. We talked about him, like, how he was trading, like, minion CS experience. That, like, most teams would be like, I have to go and catch this wave. But Rookie was like, hey, look, I can actually go and make plays while that's happening and catch people off guard. The mechanical skill that was on show, if it honestly feels like the Rookie that was the best mid laner in the LPL is back. And it's so good to see. And honestly, he's looking like the best mid laner in the LPL right now because he just absolutely butchered Knight in that game. And yeah, Fofo is looking all right on BLG, but Rookie was he's just on a different level again.
100%. And the thing is, like, this is Knight, right? Like, you can definitely say that, like, summer last year, he was playing insanely well, but regardless, it's not like he's battling down against, like, a lower caliber mid laner. This is, like, you know, a top tier mid. He just... You know, he really made him look subdued in that series. It really looked like Knight just wasn't the player we expected. And I think it's just Rookie applied so much pressure and was so proactive in such a pivotal part of V5.
And I love to see, you know, the IG boys spreading their wings as they separate. But for me, it was also Karsa, right? Like, I specifically highlighted being able to see this duo, this mid-jungle duo come to life and how deadly it can be. And yes, maybe not everything panned out that series, but I still think that combo is building up to be something worthwhile.
It was something I've been looking at for a little bit because I think Rookie, especially when he was on IG, right? Like, you got these new junglers that were coming in and he kind of had to be the guy that was holding them by their hand. And you see him a lot of the time where he's like, look, we'll go together and get vision control in the enemy jungle, we'll set you up nice. It was like kind of bringing like the toddler to school for the first days, like giving him his lunch, making sure that they're all good. But honestly, I think when you add that with Karsa, who is so competent in understanding what his laners need, you end up with this beautiful synergy where Rookie's like, hey, I know exactly what Karsa wants to do. Karsa understands what Rookie needs to do. And you can see it in this game, right? Like, a huge amount of the picks that were happening, not only in the early game, but in the mid game, were coming off of that synergy where it was like, hey, look, Rookie's going to disappear for a second or two. Cool. We're going to move into River, whether it was like with Karsa and the Trundle, whatever it was. It's just this like beautiful synergy. And again, it's like something that a lot of people, when this roster was announced, were looking forward to, but actively getting to see that work as well as people were expecting, maybe even better, is just such a treasure to see.
And the fact that it was against Karsa's old team, you know, makes everything all the better. It's always about the little grudge matches that you can input anywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
I like it. But I guess the real big question is, like, who comes out of that on top in the grand standings? Like, I guess looking well, but something else that might not be looking very well is that unfortunate upset for FPX where they lost to JDG in spectacular fashion.
Yeah, I wasn't awake for the series, so like I woke up and was like, huh? And then I watched it back and I was like,
it happened?
Huh? It's like game one was pretty like game one was like business as usual. I think JDG haven't looked super convincing so far this split, and I think FPX kind of looked like there was moments where, you know, Gory underperforming a bit in lane, but Shallow, who's looked on form, Hung has looked like arguably best support in the league so far this season. I really think this should have been a stomp in favor of FPX, and then game one is like business as usual. And I'm like, how did this happen? And then they lose the series. And then game two, there was like that Baron flip. And I feel like part of it is like hubris, but like FPX is going for these unnecessary plays, right? They get a pick on the enemy jungler, but then they're in the Baron pit. They're all squishy. So like there's no one who's like tanky enough to tank the Baron. Baitron's super low on Diana, so very vulnerable. And then you have like Jin and Victor firing down, and then the Baron gets stolen. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, that was a mistake, but you lose a game like that, it's like whatever. You know, you can throw one game. Like, EDG lost a game to Ultra Prime. That's fine. But then
they lost one game.
But then
remember, one game.
3, like, the dive bot, I just see, like, this messy dive, right? Gory is roaming down. He's not even there yet. And he literally has, like, 5% mana, right? You have a Rise walking down at level 3, 5% mana. He doesn't even arrive, though. Like, I'm like, I mean, obviously, he's not going to offer much. He's got no mana. But, like, he doesn't even arrive yet. They go for this dive. Corki TP's in, gets like a double kill, and then like the team just seem to fall asleep. Gory dies again. And suddenly I'm looking at this Corki who's like 8-0, and I'm just like, well, yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it, right?
That's not
Man.
That's not coming
And
back
like
from
even
that
the
one.
bot lane on that dive was still level 2. They didn't even wait for the third wave. Like if they waited for the right wave, all right, cool. You know, maybe we can make this dive happen, and you give time for Gory to get there. But everything went wrong. It was just the most baffling play I've seen. And coming back to game 2 as well, they really didn't look comfortable with this Diana Yasuo combo. Like so often you see like I mean, LEC were expecting it so much they showed it twice, right? Where you just go, you gank mid over and over again with the Diana Yasuo, you end up picking up all those kills. It's a very simple and easy to execute style. We never saw Beishuan going mid. Like, it just never happened.
Yep.
And it did feel like FPX were very much drilled on, hey, we're going to play around this bot lane focus. This is our identity. This is what we do, and we're not straying from it. But when you have that composition, you have that style, this is something that you need to play through a strong mid jungle. And it kind of highlighted that FPX don't have that. And I think for a lot of teams then, this highlights a very big weakness with FPX, that they really just don't know how to play outside of this bot lane centric style. And I think it's going to come back to hurt FPX. And I think also just the way that this conversation is going highlights something that I think is pretty big, is that these were a lot of FPX doing poorly, more so than JDG doing wonderfully, right? Don't get me wrong, when you get 8-0 Corki, it's kind of hard to mess up, so it becomes a lot easier to win out that game. But it's this win doesn't suddenly like change my stance on JDG. I still think JDG have a ton of issues, but when you basically get handed the win, you're going to take it, right?
Yeah, and I feel like as well, like a lot of the aspects. So like JDG punished that bot lane dive, but even like in the game 2, like the Baron play, you know, we saw like Yugao really stepped up this series. Credit to him, but like that wasn't like, okay, JDG are playing well as a team. It's like individuals stepped up, they responded well to FPX's mistakes, but like I've seen mistakes like that punished by like gold solo queue teams, right? This wasn't like FPX really just set it up, right? They just gave them like a really easy pitch, and JDG managed to knock a home run. So yeah, I think I agree with your sentiment on that. JDG, like they won the series, right? And there were some good individual moments, but this hasn't 100% convinced me. But FPX, man,
I'm just happy because these LPL teams are tilting Ox, and it's bringing him out of his shell. Just slowly but surely, every week that passes, we'll finally get the real Ox coming in here. But for FPX, right, they've been going strong since Demacia Cup, right? It has been a pretty long spree for this team to do so well, and they've looked so dominant. And at some point, the flame has to flicker a little bit. But I want to get your guys' take on what the next couple steps for this team is going to look like.
So I feel like, you know, branching off what Rob said, which I kind of agree with, like you need to show more dimensions in your team. If your only play pattern is to play through bot, you're gonna be sold, right? Because I think as well, like you look at Shallow, who on the top side, he is being so good, and I feel like you have multiple avenues to play through. I think one of the issues is that Gory isn't the best individual laner, so it makes mid difficult to play through, and that's fine. You don't have to be able to play through every lane, but you have to be aware of that. Don't draft for that. But I feel like, you know, you want multiple win cons when you get into towards playoffs. You want multiple players you can facilitate. And I just feel like you need to find your identity and become firm on it. Because obviously, this is a team with a lot of pieces coming together, which very different to the FPX we've seen before. And I think it is vitally important that they sort of solve how they're going to play and have multiple sort of ways. Because I think when there's like a lower ranked team in the league, I think you find one way to play the game and you just try it and you become really good at it and you hopefully beat some teams. But the expectation for FPX is that you're going to be competing in the top, right? So I feel like you need to be multifaceted. You need to go into playoffs where they can't just target a specific player or ban him out or something, and that completely makes your entire strategy fall apart.
Yeah, and it's also kind of hard to understand exactly what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like when I saw that Diana Yasuo, it was like, hey, look, you're going to play mid, right? Is that a case of Beishuan is like, well, no, I want to play around bot side. This is where I feel more comfortable. Is it LWX is having too strong of a voice where it's like, hey, I need this, I need that. Is that what's happening? Is it like Gory telling you that I don't want you to touch mid, leave mid, this isn't the time, this isn't right, you know? It becomes very difficult to try and understand exactly what the issues are. And don't forget as well, we still have Clid waiting in the wings as well, right? We're still waiting on him to join the team. So Is it a case of, once Clid joins in and like LWX is like, I need help, he goes, well, screw you, lad, I gotta go play mid. We don't know exactly what's gonna happen. This could definitely be something where it's like Beishuan, because he is new. Don't forget, like, he only filled in last spring just for a little bit because they were messing about with who they wanted as a jungler, and Tien had a bunch of issues. So it was like, hey, look, this guy, and he had only just joined FPX Blaze that spring. It was like, you have 2 weeks on the academy roster, and then it's like, you're a big boy now. You're welcome to the real world,
the real fires.
Yeah, so, and you could definitely see at that stage as well that Beishuan was definitely being dictated to by the veterans on the team, so that could also be an issue. So I'm still hopeful for this team, because as Hawk said, Shelahu looks great. I think he's an absolute beast, and really surprised with how well he's adapted, because again, he was another guy that only just got a bit of a taste of LPL last split, filling in for Nuggery, but certainly seems to have taken to it like a fish to water. So I'm excited to see what he's capable of. I just don't know what this team is going to end up looking like when Clid does arrive.
I think I really sort of agree with your point about the behind the scenes. I think particularly, like, again, I don't know if this is the situation here, but a lot of rosters I've seen, when there's like a very veteran player on the roster and there's sort of like less experienced players, it naturally becomes so easy for them to be warped by that veteran player who's like going to be a big voice out of their experience, and then they'll just like tend towards them and they'll just consistently end up moving over there. And particularly if it's a role like LWX who's an AD carry, it's very easy for LWX because AD carries are very lane focused, right? It's not like a support who will move around and it'll be like, okay, I need this bot, I need that bot. And I feel like especially when you have like Jalo who in the top lane, and Gory who's not being the best laner, it could very easily become warped to, just naturally, even if it's not necessarily intended. And again, this is all speculation, but I've seen this happen on rosters before where someone with a big voice, someone who's a veteran, can just completely warp how the team plays. So I think it needs to come to like them going, no, this is not how we want to play.
And finding, a little bit of stability, I guess, as the season goes on. But on the other side, JDG to the moon, baby! They upset FPX. It's over. They're going all the way. But in all actuality, kind of good stuff for the squad. I'm really proud that they were able to pull that out against FPX.
I'm gonna take overreactions.
For 500 or what?
I don't know. I think we kind of already hit on it. I'm not still convinced by this roster. I think it was FPX's mistakes that were very, very big and glaring actually being a major issue rather than JDG. Like, if it was JDG proactively setting up plays in the bot side and like, playing well at skirmishes and stuff like this, but like, all right, cool. Well, this actually looks like it's JDG coming together. But when you get 4 kills off of a massive mistake by FPX on your Corki 4 minutes into the game, I mean, that's
But hey, they don't have to worry about facing FPX again. That's the beautiful thing. Not at least until playoffs. So hey, that's the beauty of the LPL. You take one and you run with it because you can get out alive.
Yeah, but it's like at the
I'm getting some great reactions out of my analysts
at the end of the day, right? The way I see it, 10 teams make playoffs, right? That's quite a few teams, That
is quite a few teams.
That's a lot of teams who will end up getting knocked out. And I just feel like even if this win against FPX is like a difference maker, JDG make playoffs, I don't think in the current form it really matters, right? Making playoffs and then get knocked out in the first round is like, well,
Yeah. I think the thing for me is like,
I call it OMG.
If I'm looking at like JDG, right? JDG are sitting 2-2, and then I look at a team like WE who are 0-4. I have more faith in Team WE being able to perform against these teams than I do against JDG. And like, that's even though they faced off against some of the
hard
teams
hitting
that are there.
Statements
Yeah,
here.
like WE, I can see what they're going for. I think they have a strong like jungle support synergy. They can look for skirmishes. I look at JDG. They have like little to no interaction between many members on their team. Their pathing in a lot of situations is pretty greedy and or lazy, and they get caught out. Like, there's not things that they're proactively doing that are setting these up, and that's where I kind of go, right, well, what happens? Like, sure, I think they beat, what was it? They beat, obviously, FPX. I think they have a win against LGD as well for JDG. Yeah, LGD, who just fell apart, and that, and LGD as well, that game, they were like, we have a long-range composition, and then you get Jinja going, whoop, straight in with the Zenith. Like, it's not JDG being good. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they just mind control the enemy to, like, mess
That's
up.
what
Maybe
I was
that's
just
what
about
it
to
is.
say.
The
Maybe,
mind control.
It's all about the 2022 mind control
maybe,
tech, man.
maybe that's where I'm wrong. Maybe I don't understand that this is actually the behind the scenes that are happening and they just control them. But yeah, none of the wins for JDG have been JDG winning. It's been them kind of being given it by their opposition who've made a big mistake.
And I will say, there's something to be said about seizing the moment and trying to at least. But there's something else I got to talk about. It's the elephant in the room for me. I'm not a big fan of enchanters, guys. I'm not. I'm just going to come out and say it right now. I'm just not. And the fact that we're seeing a resurgence in enchanters in the bot lane in the LPL is making me sad. So help me get through this, guys, because I'm struggling.
It's an interesting one because the meta is kind of different for supports in like the 4 major regions, right? So in Korea, they will like first pick Karma. Like they are so high priority on it. You have like Yumi's coming out, Lulu's coming out, and like when we think stereotype with the LCK is the slower gameplay, sort of taking the lower risk and like scaling up, but especially in this meta, like that kind of makes sense, right? Especially since in the LPL we've seen these like, as we'd expect, like the aggressive sort of engaged supports. But the way I see it is like I think Hung was like the first person who stood out to me. He had like a really good Lulu pick. The enemy team ended up picking Rakan. They got absolutely destroyed in lane. And like the Rakan matchup, you dash in, you get polymorphed, and you just can't do anything. And I think the main thing for me is I don't think the LCK necessarily had it right by going like full hard on enchanters, but I also don't think the LPL had it right by going like full hard on like all these engaged supports. I think both are playable in this meta. I think there's a time and place. I think context of the draft, what your team needs. Like if your team needs engage and like you can grab Leona, great, go for it. But if there's like a lane matchup where you can just bully it out, you pick Lulu and suddenly your Felios now just outscales enemy Jinx because of the Lulu buff, then again, like these are all things to be taken into account. And I think the fact that we're seeing more enchanter supports in like the past few days is a positive thing because I think I want teams to show more dimensions. I want them to have more range because if we like what you don't want is like at last Worlds when got to Worlds and Yumi was just broken and it was like, oh no, if we don't know how to play Yumi, we're just absolutely screwed. Oh no, our support only knows how to roam and go in. And it's like, I feel like that's the thing is that it's better we're sort of seeing teams try this out now, develop more strategies. And then, if we come to MSI, if we come to Worlds and like the meta is, okay, enchanters are really strong or there's a mix, then I think it's better to have that depth.
Yeah, and I want to hit on something that Ox said there as well. Like, it does definitely feel like there's a time and a place depending on your composition, because I think a large portion of like why we're seeing a lot of engaged supports is when you look at like what we want in other roles, right? We're looking at Victor Corky, you're not really going to get your engage there in the mid lane. Then you look at our top, like our 4 most played top lanes are Gwen, the Gragas, which does actually work kind of because it provide that briefy front line if you want to go enchanter, but like Graves, Jace, Jax, like these are not champions that you're going to be relying on to set you up for that big engage, right? You want your support to be your Leonas and your Nautiluses and these kind of things to provide that. Yeah. So I think it very much is like kind of a being dictated by across the board what you want. And now that we're starting to see more Gragas coming through, now we're starting to see a bit of Ornn. It opens up for, hey, we're actually going to try and go for these more enchanter-based supports because, Jinx Lulu is obnoxious. Karma can be great. Yumi can be wonderful. And as well, like, I think in a lot of situations, if you're going to go with Caitlyn, we end up seeing the looks, and teams are starting to figure out, hey, look, we can go like Jin Karma or something into that matchup. So you're kind of going enchanter versus enchanter in these scenarios, and it can work out pretty well.
And that's where like you mentioned, kind of the tank tops are really dictating that a little bit. But the thing for me is, we're seeing that fluidity. The meta still developing weeks in, right? That's going to be a common factor, common theme here in 2022. But the fact that we are still getting those insane engaged supports as well, though, when we do see them, right? Like we still have those lethal supports here in the LPL that will absolutely make your day ruined. And the fact that we get to see kind of tiptoeing around both of those and that fluidity just makes it to where LPL feels they're good at the meta this year, at least so far, right?
So far.
Like,
early days,
Yeah. But being able to dictate like the things that are looking good, the things that are starting to become strong.
I think as well, because this is actually a conversation myself and Ox had a little bit, is like the the change in ideas when it comes towards how you want to play support matchups, right, as well. Because with the introduction of Glacial Augment, we're seeing a huge amount of like, hey, Thresh Leona, now a very different matchup depending on if Thresh is running Glacial Augment, if he's running something else, if the Leona has it, or even if there's like cooldowns around it. How do you want to try and play some of these lanes? Like, is Guardian now worth it? Is Aftershock Leona now worth it at all? Like, we still see one or two people picking it up, but a lot more Glacial Augment. And I think it's and as well, sorry, some people just inting because they're so used to Aftershock Leona that like Glacial Augment doesn't compute in their brains that I'm not as tanky as I used to be.
Like,
So,
I died
I'm
in 2
loving
seconds.
these early
What?
morning Europeans. This is working out so beautifully.
Yeah.
I got so many sound bites.
But I gotta say, like, I love the mind games that kind of come into a bit of the support matchups now, where it's like, cool, do I run Aftershock for the later portion of the game and running Glacial Augment could give me a little bit of a better lane matchup, like, or is it like, hey, I'm going to be able to hit Glacial Augment to several people, and that's where the reduced damage comes into play, and that's what I want. I think it makes the bot lane tank side of things far more interesting, where there's a lot you've got to actually think about as you load into the game about what do I actually want to take here.
Yeah, I think that it just makes it so scary when you're going into that bot lane, but there are a lot of scary things to be chosen, and a lot of, I feel like, busted things going on right now. And one thing that I feel like we don't get to see that often, because a lot of times it's banned away, is Caitlyn, one of my tried and true favorites. And I feel like she's pretty busted, but I'm just sad we don't get to see her.
Rob, I feel like you have a strong opinion on this, so if you wanna
like,
dive into this.
So Caitlyn has
I
a
see it in your
94% presence at the moment, and she's been banned in 69 games, which is kind of insane. She has a 70% win rate.
Nice.
And she does look very strong. But I honestly think that teams can do reasonably well against her. I don't think she needs to be as permanent banned as she is right now. I'm pretty sure, like, we've seen... I'm actually going to see if I can find... There was someone who ran the Jhin Karma lane into her, and they just completely shut her down. It made it really, really difficult to actually push in. You have like better push coming through from the Karma versus the Lux, and also then with the Jhin into the Caitlyn, and it meant that you couldn't actually play up as aggressive as you wanted to. And no, Caitlyn doesn't have that same like lackluster mid game to the same extent, but certainly then it set up for a really nice mid game where you hadn't really got the place that you wanted on this Caitlyn. She wasn't that accelerated, they hadn't really opened up the map, and because you end up with like Jhin, who was kind of fine to just clear out waves, you get Karma on first roam towards things like Rift Herald. It worked out super, super nice for them, and they were able to take over the game from that. So I definitely think there are ways to play around Caitlyn, and I think that as teams get more used to Caitlyn, they'll be able to kind of go, okay, cool, we're going to leave it open here. We're actually not that worried. We know how we deal with this.
Yeah, I think
I raise you, Elks Caitlyn. That's all I'm putting in. That's my only input.
the Jhin Karma against Kate Lux, that was the FPX JDG game
Yes,
2.
yeah.
But I also remember it was IG picked against RNG, and it was like the thing with Kate Lux is I feel like in an isolated 2v2, right? Like, imagine just you ignore the rest of the map. It's just a 2v2. It can be such a pain, right? It becomes so difficult to like find an engage window because, if they land a binding when you go in, the burst damage between them can often be enough to take you out. And that's assuming you're like high on HP. If you're low on HP, you're just gone. And then they can consistently harass you and stuff. Like, no one's disagreeing with the value of it. But it's just like, there's two options. You can pick stuff that can sort of go toe-to-toe like the Jhin Karma, but you can also, like, RNG picked a Nautilus, and they just went and hammered bot, right? And it's kind of like we saw Caitlyn really come into the meta because we had the TP changes, right? So, you can push up and you don't have to worry about, like, people TPing behind you, but that doesn't mean you don't have to worry about, like, them setting up for ganks, right? Yeah. If the enemy team, like, decide we are going to, like, 4-man bot and your team isn't there to defend, Kate Lux will fall apart. And the thing is, like, this lane it can do it very easily if left unchecked, but it needs to come ahead in lane. It needs to find momentum so that I can keep that going through the mid game. And then obviously in the late game, Kate really becomes a pretty big issue. And like the way you want to play is like you want to set up, you want to have control of objectives, put lines of traps down. Anyone that approaches has to worry about getting hit by a binding into a trap and just getting one shot, or like the double ults together. And I just think that like it is very strong when played correctly. But I think there's been so much respect given towards it when I feel like it is punishable, right? And like I can definitely imagine if you're playing against like, the best team in the league, right? You're playing against EDG. I wouldn't want to play against them playing Kate Lux. Like, absolutely not. But at the same time, I think that it's been given so much respect when there is ways to deal with it. So somewhat broken in the right hands is my view.
Okay, I get you. I saw the fire in Rob's eyes. We'll move away from that one. But why does the Shy continuously get to do evil things to people on the Gwen? Somebody explain that to me, because this guy, he gets it every time. They just let him do it, and you know it's gonna end up how it ends up every single time. It feels like. I don't know, man. Is it busted? Is it busted?
I
guess the answer is the answer.
I think busted is a soft word compared to how I describe Gwen. I honestly, man,
you had very, very poignant thoughts.
This champion. Okay, level 1, you just ruin everyone, right? You can just start trading with people level 1, and just bully them, right? And then level 6, you have all-in potential, right? You don't even need to run flash because you're so safe. You can scale super well into team fights. You become an absolute monster who can just 1v9 team fights, but you're still really good in the side lane, right? And all of this is really relevant and all that. But then just her W, honestly, what is that ability, man? It's
yes,
think about Xin Zhao being in the meta, right? Xin Zhao was in the meta because his ult is so good. That's a big aspect of why, because they buffed his ult to be a flat 5-second duration, and in this meta it's so valuable. And his is better because it's not even like you just don't take damage, you just don't get hit by anything. And it's on a shorter cooldown as well. And I'm this champion is so illegal. And that's the thing, there's so many strong things to say about this champion. She can bully you in the side lanes, she can bully you in team fights, she can just dodge all this damage. And we're in an AD carry meta where we have these scaling AD carries who are generally longer ranged, and it's yeah, and what? She just presses W and they can't do anything, and then she dashes in your face, does 3,000 damage to your whole team, and heals to full HP. I've seen some obscene Gwen clips, right? And I just think this champion is illegal. And there's definitely answers to it, right? Jace is a good answer to it. I think Carly's a good matchup, although honestly, I saw Rich play it the other day and it made me doubt I did some research, spoke to some high and low top laners, yeah, Jason and Carly are the good matchups, and then Rich kind of made me question that. But regardless, Gwen is insane, and I think this champion is just mega illegal. When I see teams first pick it, I'm they know what they're talking about, but please, right, just nerf the champion or just remove it from the game. That is my rant over.
It's when I watch these objective fights happen, right? And we just see it's cool. You've got these long range abilities like Victors and Jinxes on the opposite side. We're going to play really smart. We're going to use the zone control we have. It's all going to look really good. And then they're okay, we haven't quite got to the objective first. Now there's a Gwen who's just standing right here. And the short range comp is just, doing dragon. But we can't go anywhere close because Gwen is just standing there in her shroud just come on, you come, yeah, over here. Just come over here. I'm just going to kill you as soon as you walk over here. Doesn't matter if you're a tank, if you're squishy, there's nothing that you can do. And there's so many fights, especially when paired with Jin Zhao, where I'm just what do you do? You've got two guys that are just we don't get hit. And you're I can't do anything. It's just so obnoxious to play against. And it forces you into them. So you actually have to try and close the gap to deal damage to them. And that's where they want you, right? Because then they can just absolutely shred you to pieces. It's so annoying to play against. And I can only imagine the frustration as an AD carry. You get to 6 items and it's cool. Gwen is immune.
Well, at least the good thing is
I can't do anything.
At least the good thing is you can itemize against her. You can build MR. Oh no, wait, she does 1,000,000 true damage. Why is it always the most toxic champions just do so much true damage, right? It's always oh man.
I find it hilarious as well. When she first got released, I started looking into her. The only champion that has a higher base armor than her in the top lane is Maokai. Why does she have higher armor than every other tank in the top? It's so silly. So basically, you take any AD champion into her, she just takes less damage. She then just snips, which is attack speed, on-hit magic damage. It's it's just absurd. The fact that exists is bonkers to me.
I think something that often goes overlooked is base stats, right? They actually shape it so much. And sometimes, if you actually look through them, on the wiki, you'll see these base stats and you're just why? Why is that a thing? So Carly recently got a HP regen buffed. And if you actually go, HP regen is tiered. I think the highest is 10 per 5 seconds. and then there's a tier which is 9.5 per 5 seconds, and then 9 per 5 seconds. So like, there's not many champions in these upper tiers, and Akali's in the third highest, right? She is like up there with champions you'd expect to have high health regen, and it's like, so you know, whenever you see Akali go Doran Shield second wind and her base health regen, just means like that's why she can just soak so much damage in lane. Like she has energy, so infinite resource, and then she just doesn't take damage because she heals it up constantly. And I'm like, why are you making Akali this way? Why have you given Gwen such high base armor? Like, it's no surprise these champions are broken because you just like tweak these numbers up. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, why don't we just give Xayah extra 100 AD at level 1 and see, oh yeah, of course she'll be broken. Like, what?
It's
why?
all right, though.
Like,
at least you know, like Renekton, she falls off late game, you know, so.
yeah.
Well, you know, the next point for me is something I know you guys are going to be so enthusiastic to talk about. It's the combo of what we've seen in mid lane on repeat. Kind of feels like when you're watching a dry or spin cycle over and over again. But it's Corki versus Victor in the mid lane. How exciting, guys! It's great, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right? You know, my opinion of this is, so I think Corki is easy to execute on.
He
Victor.
do damage.
Yeah, I think the only thing you can really mess up on Corki, the two things is one, lane, right? And two, the package timing, which
no way. Tell me more about that, Ox. I would love to hear the musings of you.
Like, this is how it should go, okay?
Timing.
You pick a package for first herald, right? That's valuable, yeah. And then you can pick it up for second herald. I'm not even that bothered, but then sync it up with dragons from then on, right? And just keep a sync with the dragons. And there were so many moments. Yugao was particularly guilty of this, just randomly grabbing package 2.5 minutes before dragon. Baron's not even up, and I'm like, okay, cool, you've just wasted that. It's like such a powerful tool, but I can talk about this all day. But I think for me, in terms of like how broken these champions are, I think Corki you can punish in lane. Not enough teams are doing so, right? We even saw at the start of the split Xiaohu solo killing Gory in the Victor Corki matchup. And Victor's not even like the biggest lane bully that we have in the meta at the moment. I think you can for sure punish Corki in lane, but it's like you have to because he just scales so obnoxiously well.
You have to.
Super safe. Got great team fighting tools in the package, super long range, insane burst. But then even like it's not like he's just a poke champion because his rockets do so much damage and it's such a short cooldown. Like he's not got as much sustained damage as normal Corki, but like it's not like he's weak in sustain compared to a mage. Like he's gonna have a rocket available most of the time, and like he is just so strong. So I think honestly, unless your mid lane is confident, I can bully this Corki out of lane. I think he is so broken. On the other side with Victor, my take on him is a little bit different because I think you actually have to be pretty good. Like rookie on Victor is built different, right? I'll just be honest. But I've also seen some Victors who just haven't been as impactful. I think as well he's got weaknesses, right? You know, he's immobile. He can be threatened in lane, particularly if you have like LeBlanc into him. The 1v1 matchup isn't amazing for LeBlanc, but then she can set up ganks. We saw that in the IG RNG game too, where like they would just gank him on gank the Victor on repeat. So I think Victor is actually okay. I think he's fine. I don't think he's busted. I think he's got weaknesses. I think in the right hands he looks busted, but I think he's okay. Corki though, that champion's broken.
Yeah. I think the big things for the three champions we talked about, right? Like Gwen, Corki, and Victor are like they're so flexible as well. Like they kind of just plug and play into whatever you want to do. If you want to try and play like long range zone control, Victor's there. He's got like damage that can hit you from pretty far. He's got like the gravity field that can do a lot to like dissuade engages or like separate teams when they try and dive in on top of you.
Just block an entire choke point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you've got Corki as well. Like you can play that poke build if you want to, but if you want to just go straight late game team fight, cool. You've still got the Immortal Shield Bow build as well, right? Like you've got the sides there, and then Gwen as well. Like the reason that she I think frustrates people so much is like, okay, cool. Do we want to play team fight? Yes, she stands over there, presses W, and we can't do anything. Do we want to play split push? Yeah, she beats everyone in the 1v1, so we put her up here and she does totally fine. Like she can basically do whatever you want. Really hard to punish on the sideline as well, because you know we've seen so many clips where it's like 1v2 and she still comes out with a kill for herself before she goes down, or she just gets a double kill if she's far enough ahead. So like it's really,
or even just buys like so much time. Like she takes so long to kill. Like even if she dies, probably doing Baron on the inside of the map.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I think that's why like we're seeing these three come up so often, is that like there's not a huge amount of like terrible matchups for them. Yes, there's some that can do reasonably well, but a lot of that is still like kind of difficult to execute on, and they just plug and play so well. And I think that's why they're just so prevalent, is like they just fit into whatever the hell you want to do.
And I think that, being able to fit into anything you want is super important in this, and that's why I want to talk about how busted Xin Zhao is right now, and the fact that he's literally in every comp because you just can't. You were talking about it, the 5-second crescent guard to just block any damage you want. But I will say, finally, we're getting the Trundle answers that we were seeing in 2021 coming out here in 2022, and it was actually looking pretty good last night. I was surprised. I was happy.
I mean, you take this.
I was just gonna say, like, even if Trundle comes in, right, like, the amount of times I've seen this, like, Gwen Xinjiao frontline is just so stupid.
The Venn diagram.
It just annoys me. I'm just like, cool. What do you do? Like, it doesn't matter what kind of champion you're running. The only one even who can... actually, there isn't even. Like, if you go for, like, Jinx, you've got absolutely no damage because they're just invulnerable. Same with Caitlyn. You got no real CC you can provide. Aphelios is too close for comfort, so he just kind of gets one shot from them. He gets bopped. I think the only one is kind of Jin, who's like, hey, I'm going to open up a curtain call and try and force you to use this early, and then maybe we can follow up after, right? Like, that's the only way you can really deal with these, and when it becomes so frustrating to deal with. And as well, the fact that Xin Zhao is so strong in the 1v1 early as well is just nuts, right? Like, you get the strongest skirmisher who can play off of wherever you want. He's got great ganks, great setup, and even like the amount of times I've seen if you're like at a dragon fight, right? Where I think it actually happened to Rookie yesterday, Xiaopeng, right? 2 auto attacks with the Q onto dragon, flashes onto him with the audacious charge and just instantly knocks him up and they murder Rookie. Like, you're pretty versatile in how you want to play that champion. Plus you've even got the slow and the W. Like, he again just does so much and buys so much time. It's really difficult to deal with in the meta we're at the moment.
Yeah, if he gets in like a champion's face at any sort of stage of the game, it feels like difficult to deal with. Like, I think this is the main problem with Xin Zhao is like if you have, for example, like a Lee Sin and you shut him down, he's not going to be useful late game. Like, Xin Zhao feels like even if he's shut down, he's still like, you have to respect, even if he's not that fed, he'll still get up in your face and cause issues. And like the ultimate just means like your AD carry can't really do anything easily to him, right? And I think that's the problem. Is like the Trundle pick is good at neutralizing him because Xin Zhao can't just like go 1-on-1 with him in the early game. Like, it means his skirmishing is weakened because he can't just like say I'm going to kill the enemy jungler and win every fight and they can't contest me. But he's still like, this is the problem with the Crescent Guard is like in team fights he's like serves so well as a frontline. He provides so much zone control, and in this meta that's so perfect, right? You have the strong early skirmishing combined with the essentially being invincible to the enemy AD carry for 5 seconds, and like there's definitely weaknesses to it, right? And like I said, if he's behind he's still useful, but obviously if he's ahead he's so much better. But like, and I think poke is one thing. Like, we've seen times like Corky's firing rockets at him from a distance, and if he can't find the engage, he will just be like, well, I'd have to burn my ult now to survive the poke and be useless, or you know. So I think he's very, very, very strong, but at least there's, unlike Gwen, there's kind of play. Like Gwen, you burn her W and it's like, it's back up again.
I will say, like, one of the interesting things is the influx of Xin, but the kind of leaving of Lee Sin. It seems like they've kind of interchanged places a little bit. We do still see the Lee, but it is really interesting to kind of look at that. But something else I think
just to quickly say, I think it's like, because Lee Sin, like, kind of want to talk about you need to do good early, right? He's got this like strong early skirmishing like Xin Zhao, but if you don't, like, he falls off so hard. Whereas like Jarvan, obviously really valuable in team fights with the ultimate. Xin Zhao obviously can still just absorb so much damage. And then Viego is obviously, he's a bit of a different one because his skirmishing takes longer to come online, but like he's insane later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I'm going to come in with a hot take. I know you guys are going to think I'm dumb. I'm a play-by-play. I get to have dumb takes and get away with it all the time.
That's your job.
Zeri's busted. That's all I'm saying. Zeri's busted. She's too quick. I can't see her on my screen. I don't know how I'm supposed to keep up with her as a play-by-play, and I'm seeing some clips on Twitter that are terrifying me. So, in my mind, she's busted. I don't care.
Nah.
I'm not as convinced.
The screenshots I'm gonna have tonight are gonna be so good.
Nah, dude. I mean, okay, this champion can go fast, right? But
go fast.
That's okay. There's 2 scenarios in which Zeri performs. One, everyone on the enemy team stacks up, right? You know, like, imagine the ideal setup, like everything Black is playing, Twitch, pops his ultimate, is like just hitting like 5 targets clumped. She can do that well, right? When she pops the E, her shred, her AoE is pretty strong. Especially the new build at the moment has like Runans as well. She's good at, right? but that's a rare scenario to have set up, especially in the current meta. But on the other scenario that she's good at is like the fact that if you stack up your ult over a long team fight, like an extended, sort of very extended fight, you can get tons of stacks, you can be super fast, but you just don't do that much damage, right? Like if you gave Jinx that much movement speed,
Don't tell
my
me that,
lord,
man.
it
All
would be
you do is
insane.
Go fast.
But dude, it's like I don't know, man. I know the clip you're talking about, right? And I see it, and you just see Zeri like zooming about, like view, 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 and it's just like, okay, 50, 50, 50, like doing like the tiniest amounts of damage. I'm like, okay, yeah, like,
But it's for like 2 minutes.
Yes, but
and
you
he's
know
literally
why?
Like just staying around them over and over again.
do you know why it takes 2 minutes?
It's
because
like a shepherd dog.
she doesn't kill anyone, right? She just doesn't
What if
kill
you
anyone.
What if you just lead them where you want them to go all day? Like you just keep them
Herding
you
cattle,
just, like,
right?
Cattle drive them.
Yeah, that's
Summoner's Rift.
you know,
That's what I want my
we've-
AD carry to do.
We've been spoiled with
Yes.
League of Legends, right? Because this whole time we've been thinking about these champions' combat ability. We've been like, oh, think how good Cork is at fighting. We have the first non-combat champion in Zeri. She's a cattle herder, right? That's her role. We've just, they're really throwing out the window here.
Her damage isn't great, but her herd ability, that's really where she shines, you know?
That's where it really comes to life.
Well, yeah, I agree with Ox. I think damage isn't quite there. And I think as well, just with the meta the way it is at the moment, even if she's really fast, right, her range is super short. Like, you put her into a team fight where there are Jinxes who are just, like, auto-attacking her and she can't get into range. Like, no matter how fast you are, you can still A-click, right? You're still going to be able to hit her. So I think that's where she's just going to fall off, is just like, hey, if there's a Jhin who's firing, like, onto your front line and Zeri can't get in to deal any damage, Jinx is there, or you've got Caitlyn or something along these lines, there's just no real function for Zeri in those fights. Even if she is really fast, it's like, cool, well, I still need a front line. Like, even if I'm ahead of my front line, that's like the worst position. So
I think, like,
yeah, I did see a clip on a little bit later on after the Yon clip that you were talking about, like the speed and all that, but it was like the finishing of a team fight with a Lulu, and it did look like it was actually being able to put damage. And yes, that is a lot to do with the Lulu and whatnot, but I still think there's a lot possible with this change.
I do think I'm exaggerating a bit on the damage, and we're still like finding out the build. I just think, like, one, the damage isn't that reliable because you're very skill shot based, and also that the chat, like when we see a Felios, Jinx, things like this doing like obscene damage, it's just, it really pales a bit compared to that. Like the thing is as well, when you think about a short range, I like, for example, we have Graves, right? Who, like, if you think about the damage he can put out, it's like insane. And obviously he's not as mobile, but like he does insane damage. He's really bulky, gets a load of free base stats. Like, I just think she's so hard to play as well because you're relying on mobility, which is inherently harder to use than raw tankiness, and also your auto attacks are skill shots. So it's like, you know, if you misplay it, you're not doing as much damage. If you walk in the wrong direction, you're gonna get caught by a skill shot. Like, I feel like, when maybe we'll see, right? Maybe she gets a couple of buffs. Maybe people work out the right build. We might see the top level AD carries in a better meta for her, show what she can do.
Yeah.
But I just don't think the meta's great right now, and I think it's just like, it's just too hard to pull off at the moment.
And especially in competitive, it's still a while off, right? Like, this is all theoretical talk about the champion in general. When it the fact that it's released on normal servers right now, but when you're looking at it into the competitive space, that's a whole nother conversation. I feel like, especially when you're looking at some of the best mechanical players in the entire world being able to click super fast around the screen and going like millions of miles an hour. That's what I'm excited for as a play-by-play. I just hope. I might need to get some like laser vision or something to be able to keep up in that one. That one's gonna be a little bit rough.
I just think. I was just gonna say. I think just on Nox's point, like if I'm gonna pick a super short range AD carry, I want them to fit a better function, right? Like hyper carry Aphelios, hyper carry Vayne, and even with the Kaisu's relatively short range, she's super good in dive compositions, right? So I think for Zeri, it's kind of like, where does she fit in that spec? It's like, hey, super quick, super fast. This is all well and good, and yeah, you kind of got some like, maybe pick off potential with the way she's able to hop over walls and stuff like that, but it just doesn't feel like she fits a certain thing at the moment where I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I'd want to pick her over these other champions.
I actually wonder if like she'd be better fitted to like top lane or something in the right matchup. That's something I've been thinking about. I'm not sure. Like, this is just really like me pulling ideas out my hat, speculative. But it's like kind of similar to like how we saw Akshan in the top lane, but never really fought. because, you can have like favorable matchups in the top lane. You can play against melee champions and just keep them at bay. She does have the dash and she has the jump over the wall, which is going to make it hard to gank, And then
very true.
And then you can still have your AD carry, but you have this other aspect offered by Zeri. So maybe that's again, it's really early days, but I am not convinced that when she does get released into pro play, she's going to, be very high priority.
We'll see. I still not see very many actions, and that makes me a little sad for sure. But guys, it was the Spring Festival kickoff. We had the Spring Festival Super Weekend this weekend. It was a mighty fun time. We got to see Lyric go literally crazy on the first night of the Spring Festival Super Weekend. That was a treat forever that I will keep close to my heart.
I cannot not laugh at that clip every time I see it.
Every
It's
time,
so
man. I think I've
funny.
played it like 50 times at this point. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's on Twitter. Oh my God, it's so funny. But we have a new Spring Gala in the LPL this year. It's very exciting. It's a big change, but it is a tried and true matchup, at least I hope in the future. RNG versus Billy. I know I got to put out here, first of all, we do not think it's going to be Uzi playing, but still hype matchup nonetheless.
So
Where's Uzi? Honestly, that's my question. Where's Uzi? Where is he? Where?
Yeah, I mean, look,
He's chilling, man. He's chilling.
Uzi never plays before Chinese New Year. That's always kind of been the rule.
Exactly. Exactly.
And look, I personally would love to see him come back, right? Like, it feels like if there's ever a matchup to draw him out of
I know.
the pre Chinese New Year cave, it feels like this is the one, right? But
It has to be. It has to be. Send the bat signal. Get the Uzi signal. Get the festivities going. I don't care. Whatever you got to do to get the guy out of the bat cave and put some hurt on some fools. That's all I want, man. That's all I want.
it's probably not going to happen, though. That's really sad.
It's not. I'm getting my hopes up for no reason.
I saw Lyric sent me over the screenshot they were going to use today of me looking very angry because Uzi isn't playing, and I'm disappointed, right? Like, I've been waiting 3 years now to cast this guy. I really want to see him, and especially for that series, it feels like it should be the one that he comes out. But unfortunately, I don't think it will be. Now, how do I feel like that affecting the matchup? I still think it's going to be an insane match, right? I'm excited for Xiaohu versus Fofo. I think with the resource Xiaohu gets, like, that's going to be a crazy interesting matchup. Crisp and Ming, like, two of the best supports we've ever had in the LPL going up against each other. That's going to be nuts. Doggo still looks phenomenal on this team as well, so I'm still excited to see him and how he's going to be able to do. Like, there's so much still that I'm excited for between these two teams, and I'm not just worried about if Uzi plays, this is going to make it. It's like, no, this is still a hype matchup.
Yeah, way against way. Which way is the way?
Way. Which way is it going to go?
Yeah.
There's no way it's that way.
I think what I think what's cool as well is, like, both these teams, I feel like, have had some great moments but haven't looked infallible, right? And I think there's been individuals who've definitely stepped up, and I feel like both teams are still kind of finding how they want to play the game, and as a result, I feel like this is like great timing where we're just going to see them butt heads. And I think I think RNG's been looking better and better. I think Xiaohu in particular has just looked so good. I mean, I think one of the things is he was phenomenal in top lane, right, last year. And the team was obviously playing to him, which meant he was able to sort of flex that. But there was always question marks, like, think how good he is in top lane. Is it worth moving him back to mid? And sure, RNG haven't hit the ground running quite as fast as people had hoped. But man, Xiaohu is just, like, slotted right back in. He has looked really something else.
And Ben is insane too, right? Like, we've seen him be able to pop off in the past. So it's a building structure there for sure.
Yeah, sorry, go on ahead, Ox.
I was gonna say I feel like the thing with Ben is, like, compared to Xiaohu, is the refinement isn't quite there.
Exactly.
Even though the individual talent is. But I think, again, I said sort of coming into the split, I feel like RNG are probably one of my front runner favorites, but I think they're going to be more of a slow burn. So I honestly think week on week this roster is going to get better and better, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think the big thing was, like, trying to see what RNG's identity was going to be, right? Because, like, as you said, Xiaohu, much better at, like, understanding how to manage waves to set up either for, hey, I'm going to move elsewhere on the map, or you guys are going to move to me and we'll play around that. And with Bin, you don't get that as much. Bin is much better in the 1v1 of the raw aggression is like, hey, this guy's messed up, I'm going to punish that. So I think a large portion of that is, like, these guys actually look more comfortable just playing mid around Xiaohu again. It just feels like Xiaohu's still the voice in the team. He can look good. And we've seen them getting Gala set up for success as well. And even though I think Gala does have limited champions that he can really perform on, having the Aphelios there, having things like the Ziggs you can always go back to is still going to work out pretty all right. So I think from RNG's perspective, like they're going to look pretty all right, pretty good coming into this series. I think they're starting to figure out exactly how they want to play. And then for BLG, right, like you just match pound for pound everything that RNG want to do. So I'm really excited for this, and it feels like, again, we're going to come into very similar to like V5 and Top Esports, right? Like these team fightings are going to be so exciting. You're going to get, get to see the big mechanical plays coming out from these guys. You're going to get those monstrous moments where you're just like, oh my God, these teams are so damn good. And that's what I'm super excited for.
I have a little soft spot, wholesome players. Doggo getting a little bit of wholesomeness himself, but also, rookie of the week in week 2. Coming into this matchup against RNG, against Gala, knowing that this theoretically could be one of the last times he plays, at least unless Uzi does not decide to come in after Chinese New Year. Like, this is a huge moment for the guy to shine, and we've seen his willingness to put everything on the line to be able to be that carry for the team or just be able to help the team. And so I'm rooting for the guy, man. I'm hoping that this is just a banging game, banging series. We get blood all over the place, and it's just a fun one for both these sides, knowing that we have a pretty big break coming on the other side.
Yeah. In honesty, I feel like Doggo's looked really good. I feel like RNG's bot lane has looked a bit...
Yeah,
like, it has looked a bit off. It's like, I have high expectations, right? But I can't remember what series it was specifically, but I remember them getting like 2v2 killed, and I was just like, huh? Oh, I think it was against Anyone's Legend, right? I think they got like 2v2 killed against them, and like, fair play. I think Anyone's Legend's bot lane are one of their stronger aspects, but still, like, that shouldn't be happening. I think there's like that little mismatch there based on form, but I think it goes back in the other direction in mid lane, because I think I think Fofo looked like he did have a good series recently, but overall has probably looked like the weakest player on BLG in this season. But I think that's what's cool, is when like these little in current form mismatch in sort of strength. So it's like, okay, so maybe they look to get that advantage here and that advantage there. But man, I'm so ready for the series.
Yeah,
I know. I wish it could just come now. Just have it tomorrow. It'd be great. But yeah, it's right around the corner.
Why don't we speed it up by having the LPL every single day? Oh wait.
No way. That's such a brilliant idea.
You know what? We should actually stick extra games on some of the days just to speed up even.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe on the weekend. Can we call them super weekends, right?
When it's just every weekend.
Super weekend.
Every weekend's a super weekend.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Doggo point though, because like I agree. I think Doggo's been incredible. And my heart does go out to him, right? Like, you saw the first series that he played where he thought he had a bad one and he's like crying backstage.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, your heart really does. The guy is trying his damnedest. And it does suck, because I think he is a good AD carry. And look, with Uzi coming in, you don't get Uzi to not play him, right? And that's just the way of the world. Exactly. And obviously, I know Doggo was aware that Uzi might have been coming in and was like, hey, look, I can train under him. He's still young, so he does have a career ahead of himself, but we've seen what can happen to players. Like Abel was one of them, right? Where you get stuck on a roster behind someone and you're not actually able to get out. You got to drop back down to the LDL, and it feels like you're taking several steps down the rung. And especially for Doggo, who's moved over from the LMS, you want to see this guy like having those moments. Now, I think he should be all right, right? I think he will end up getting onto another team, especially with the performances that he has had. But it does kind of feel sad that we're going to lose him, because I do think he is one of the better AD carries that we have in the league when you look at the grand scope. And to see him kind of not rotting away, obviously he's going to be training and learning, but certainly not getting his place in the spotlight is gonna suck for the guy.
And that's why I really hope like this game, if it is going to be the last we see him for a little while, like, he's able to perform against RNG, against Uzi's old team, right? That would be absolutely huge. And we'll see if that happens. That's coming up later in the week. Again, that was talking about RNG versus BLG. But now one of my favorite parts of the LPL, besides being a part of the LPL, are these skits that we've been putting out, guys. They are hilarious. I know that may be a lot and a little bit biased coming from me. But the last one we did, specifically the one you, Dagda, and Oshi did, takes the cake, man. I've watched it like 40 times at least at this point. It is so funny, man. So I just want to take a little moment, like get a little bit of the behind the scenes of that skit and kind of go through some of the maybe fun memories you had making it.
So it ended up being a bit all over the place, because I had to head down to Ushin's place. He's only just moved into a new spot. And I got down there and we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. Like we'd sent over a script and we're like, hey, look, this is what we're thinking. But we still had to really like flesh it out because we wrote the script and then hadn't really gotten the toy yet. So we had to figure out, how this was going to go. And I'm going to call them prototypes. There were 3 prototypes that we went through. There was like,
Okay.
but the thing was, these prototypes all came from the charity shop that like is down the corner from me. So I ran in, but none of the things worked, right? Because like, basically all of them were missing pieces. So like there was like one little box that I got. I was like, this would be great. I was like, cool. And it's got like 5 holes. I could see the bits inside. I'll be able to use this to like put someone into each spot. And then I opened it up and there's like 3 pieces. There's just like nothing left.
Oh, it's doomed.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's just not gonna happen. There was like another one that my sister managed to nick from her school to like help me out, but like she only got the top. There was no like bucket underneath, so there was just the shapes things on top.
So you just have the thing to drop it through.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's just me like holding this like, hey Yoshida, where does Zed go? And I just put it through and just clatters onto the floor. It's like, so eventually we settled on the little circular guy, which kind of worked out. But even then there was like,
honestly.
Yeah, I know. We need all the takes. We need to release those. My cheeks are hurting at this point. I've laughed so
we managed to get down there, and I was like, right, well, we're gonna have to like figure out some way to attach these icons to the pieces, right? So I printed off some pages, but like the printer was kind of running out of ink, which is why they're all like slightly scuffed, as all LPL production is, But we come into it, and yeah, so we've managed to roll up sellotape on itself. We like stuck them on.
Classic strap.
Yeah. Some of the portraits came out looking a lot better than others, which is why some of them aren't actually in the video. Except for the Caitlyn one that we started off with.
Right.
Thresh got removed fairly quickly. And then it was just kind of a couple of takes, but it was like, how do you actually want to do it? And then we kind of copped at the start of it that we started the recording, I think maybe like 5, maybe 4:30 in the afternoon/evening, and then copped that the light was like changing outside the back, so it'd be like we're in the middle of a conversation, it's like half light outside, you swap to another one, it's like pitch black. We're like, well,
nice.
guess we gotta like record some of these again.
Just throw it
Yeah.
Just an Easter egg. Just call an Easter egg, right?
Yeah. It's like, if you know, you know. I mean, come on.
So
That's all
I will
gotta
say we are not professionals, and there was definitely some learning curves that came along with this. There's even like, if you look at it, I like accidentally look at directly down the lens of the camera as Ushin smacks the thing out of my hand, and I was like, oh, that was a terrible idea, but
it makes me so happy though, and I'm glad that you guys were able to pull that one off. So it's definitely nice. I will say, it is a little sad to be getting towards the end here of our 3rd episode of The Last Hit, and before our big Chinese New Year break. I want to give you guys a last little moment to say what you've been thankful for this year so far, and what you're looking forward to. Ox, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I am thankful for my health. Yeah, I think that's a big one at the moment. But also in terms of me personally, I'm thankful that I'm on the LPL full time. This is like been crazy. Like it was so out of the blue last season to be sort of brought in as a guest, and it was such a big deal. And like I just came in like, I'm just gonna do what I can. I'll put the effort in, and to sort of be well received and be brought back like as a mainstay. It was just, I don't know, man. This is my dream. This is literally my dream. So
it's literally the dream.
Yeah, I'm
man.
thankful. I'm thankful for that.
Boat.
Yeah. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Good year. I'm hyped, and I'm also thankful that I got to cast that amazing series the other day. Because honestly, V5 Top Esports, that was a.
You're just gonna keep throwing it in Rob's face. You're just gonna keep shoving it in his face. You're like, yep.
I'm thankful that I got to cast it and not Rob specifically. Right.
There we go. Bring it on. I want to see the fisticuffs. So, Rob, what you got?
I was gonna go wholesome, but now after that, I don't know if I want to. But yeah, I gotta say, no. I'll go back. And look, I'm genuinely thankful that you two guys, the work that you've put in since you've joined the team has been absolutely incredible. Like having you two come on, not only have you like slotted into the team incredibly well and provided like smiles and laughs and all the good stuff across the board, you've been such an intimate part of like helping the LPL to grow, like putting on the show, even behind the scenes, say with like the skits or the podcast and everything else. So I'm thankful for the two incredible people that we got to join us this year, because you guys have been absolutely incredible.
Well, now I feel guilty, man. Why you should let Bob go first. I look like the weird person now.
Yeah. This is what I do. I say really wholesome things, but it's actually passive aggressive, because now everyone's gonna go, "Ox, you
Exactly.
how did you do that? You
man.
prick!"
Get him off the show.
How dare you? all said, it was absolutely amazing to have you two, and I'm glad we got to get Ox for the first time in the year. Now, everyone, that is our third episode of The Last Hit. We're winding down here. We do have a special episode on the horizon, so make sure during the Chinese New Year break you keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. But until next time, we'll see you on The Last Hit.